What's happening, what's happening, what's happening? Of course, you know it's your boy B-Hop Radio Shouty. Stepping in the building, I got a guy that is responsible for this Atlanta hip-hop scene as we know it, okay? We probably wouldn't even have an Atlanta hip-hop scene if this guy was not putting it down for the town as he has done, okay? I'm talking about Curt. I'm talking about a legendary studio. I'm talking about Patchwerk. What's good with it, boss?
Chillin', man. You putting all that on me?
Oh, my God. Curt, first of all,
put it on us.
I'm going to put it on everybody, man.
Us, not me. We got a team over there.
Okay, now first of all, break down that team.
Well, you know, so Patchwerk Recording Studios, we started out in '93 as a record label.
Yeah.
Patchwerk Recordings. Our first artist was Razkaz. And we signed Mean Green passed, rest in peace, Mean Green. And then we had Voodoo. And but we started our studio in '95 here in Atlanta when Bob got drafted by the Falcons.
Yeah.
So we just made 25 years, man, and we've been blessed. I mean, we hit the ground running with Atlanta's finest. So our first client was Outkast, and Outkast immediately gave us credibility. So we went from Outkast to Goody Mob to Society of Soul to all the stuff that Organized Noise was working on, and we've been blessed since then.
Okay, Curt, for me being an Atlanta native and local, when it came to music, Patchwerk was always the place that you felt like you had to get in there at least one good time to record one song to feel like you were actually amounting to something out here in these streets. Talk about just building that legacy of a studio to where, I mean, I just got to be real. You got Coca-Cola, you got the King Center, and you got Patchwerk Studios in this thing, man.
Yeah, you know, one of the books I always used to read was like, they would ask you if you closed down, would you matter? And I always measured ourselves like if we went away, would it have an impact on the city and the culture? And I felt like it would, that if we disappeared, it definitely would have an impact. And it's been validated damn near by this little pandemic because we haven't been doing our podcasts and our workshops.
Yeah.
And people have been calling and asking about them. It was like, man, that was my networking, and that's how I met people. And I was looking for them, doing them once a month. But, you know, we just came in a little bit different. And we came in, whereas I remember one time I was on a vacation. We were in Bermuda. And we were stopped in Jamaica and Bermuda, and it was a big difference because in Jamaica, when you left your resorts, all the people would be running up on you trying to do stuff, almost begging for opportunity. And we went to Bermuda, it wasn't like that. Them people wasn't. It was just chilling. They wasn't running up under you for anything. And so I was talking to one of the dudes that was he was a cab driver, and he was like, "Yeah, it's different here. We were never slaves." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, we were never slaves. We came over from England." And we were carpenters, electricians, and tradespeople, and our unemployment rate here in education is less than 2%. We were never slaves. And so when I think about us, I say we were never slaves. We never took money from a record label.
Yeah.
We never took money from a production company or a publishing company to get off the ground. Our studio wasn't anchored by a famous production company or a famous artist or a label behind it. Like even now, like no disrespect, like if whether you be like, you know, before when it started, and it's weird because I'm in it and I see it going back like that, but when we first started, every studio was affiliated with something. You couldn't go into Jermaine's studio unless you were signed to So Def.
Yeah.
You couldn't get in DARP unless you were signed to Rowdy Records. You couldn't get in La Coco, which was LaFace out in Alpharetta, unless you were signed to LaFace. You couldn't get in Bosstown unless you knew Bobby Brown, right? And so we came in as the only first kind of 100% commercially available studio that belonged to the city.
Yeah.
So and we didn't take any money from any, like, you know, Drama and them got Mean Street, but that's Atlantic.
Exactly.
And then these other studios have money and they belong to Sony or something like that. So we've always said we've been clean.
Yeah.
And the crazy part about it is nowadays is when you look at it, so Doppler, which was our granddaddy, it got bought. And those people weren't even going to be a studio. So it's kind of like not a commercial facility anymore. And then Dallas and them opened up, but then Future bought it. So now it's a private studio. You can't get in there unless you got a relationship. And then Tip bought Silent Sound. That was public. Now it's private.
Yeah.
And then Outkast bought Bosstown to Stankonia. It's private. So we came in a situation where everybody was privately owned and affiliated, and we said we're going to be a 100% commercial facility. And we're not going to take any money from anybody, right? And so we cut our teeth. And so if you competing with other artists or you from out of town, do you feel comfortable going to stay at somebody else's house? No, you stay in a hotel because it belongs to everyone. So when Cash Money or Dr. Dre or anybody come, Fabulous or whoever come from out of town, Whitney Houston, they don't want to go to a place that belongs to somebody. They rather go to a place that belongs to everybody. So we've always been looked at as Atlanta's studio and it's neutral ground. We're going to go play that Florida and Georgia game, not at Georgia or Florida. We're going to go to a neutral place.
Come on.
And so we've been that since day one, and we haven't changed.
Okay, Kurt. What was that point that you realized that it was going the fuck down at Patchwerk?
Well, I knew we hit the ground running, but it was an opportunity. So, you know, you got to imagine, we was talking off camera and you kind of get an idea of how I am, but people are how they are because of their experiences, right? So when we came in and I went around to, and it's been 25 years and I still never said who shitted on me, but we went around to other studios and the studio managers wouldn't tell us pricing. They wouldn't tell what they paid the engineers. They wouldn't let us tour the facility. They wouldn't do anything. And so when I got in, we were small. We were in a house, and I always said, man, if I ever get in the front and people are looking at us, I'm changing this shit. I'm going to share the information. And I believe that if we have more than one great studio in Atlanta, it makes Georgia better. And so when we got in the front and people started looking to us, I always shared the information. So it's so much shared now. A lot of people, when they see the reality shows and movies or videos and they be like they're in Atlanta and they see the studio, all of them used to call me and be like, they think everything is shot at Patchwerk, right? It's to the point now that like a lot of people, when they build their studios, I allow them to come over with their architect. What? They tour our facility. I even open up our plans and show it to them and tell them who we use and all this stuff. So now, even when I'm watching shit, the rooms look like our room because we used to have very distinctive diffusers in the back. Where if you saw it, you knew it was us. Man, about a month ago, I was watching the show and I'm like, is that in our room? And the only thing that threw it was the lighting. So a lot of times we shared the information. And then the other thing that we brought in is that when we first started, all of the engineers were independent contractors. And when we first started, the first lesson that I learned that everybody was talking about was the vibe. The vibe got to be right. The vibe got to be right. And so I remember we would go in the studio, and I thought that the artist was the star, then the producer, and then maybe the engineer was third. But back then when we started, remember, we were on 2-inch. So I would watch the engineer come to the studio 2 hours early. He would set up and we was doing live instrumentation with organized noise. So they would set up all these mics, track all these live musicians, splice the tape, edit them, make 2 tapes work together, and nothing could happen without the engineer. And I said, well, fuck, he's the superstar. And so, and then I was like, well, you know what, when we build with a label, we would have to get a purchase order. So we would get one for the studio, and then the engineer would have to get one on their own. And then I'd be like, well, man, these people never pay in 30 days. So we out here with 30 days worth of work, and they working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the bill is high. And then I'm like, what kind of vibe does it create if the engineer been here all the time, ain't got his money, working all night, and y'all talking about we doing another session? And I said, ding, ding, ding. We gonna hire the engineers and put them on staff, make sure they can file their taxes, get houses and cars. So we hired the engineers, and that changed the game. And so what ended up happening is all the best engineers, we started doing their booking, their billing, their scheduling, their collecting and everything, and marketing and promoting them. And then guess what? All the best engineers wanted to work at the studio. And then if you was a client that wanted to work with the best engineer would say, I only work at Patchwerk. And so that's why till this day, we're known for our engineering, because we literally kind of put our business behind engineering. And so we've been able to train engineers from right out of school. We got a hell of an intern program, so we can take them from step 5 to 10. So our engineers are Monica's engineers, our Usher's engineers, our Polo's engineers, our Jazzy's engineers, our Jeezy's engineers, our Ludacris engineers, the YFN, Young Dolph, all of these people, they end up, Sean Garrett, taking our engineers because they've been trained to be able to do everything. So that was like the difference. We didn't take money. We weren't affiliated with an artist. We were 100% commercial facility, and we had the best engineers. And we didn't sell studio time. We sold customer service, and people didn't figure that out. And then now, what's funny now is, like I tell people, consumers are smarter than you think. Nigga, they don't believe that you want to help them now because before the pandemic, your ass wouldn't listen to a beat. You wouldn't take a meeting. You wouldn't come do their interview. Now all these people want to act like they want to be so helpful and share information and help people. The consumers call bullshit. They look at us and be like, that track record go back 25 years. And just like I tell people, like, I'm still friends with my kindergarten friends. So if you think I ain't solid, you can call my first girlfriend and everything all the way up, and it checks out. So the studio checks out. You can go all the way back, and the stories are going to be the same. They're going to say, man, when they started in 95, they came in doing this, and they operated like this, and they had these type of people working here, and it felt like this, and the business was always solid. We always started on time. They never lost my files. Everything was labeled properly. They just called me. I'll put this on my wife that passed and my daughter. So this is a real conversation. 3 days ago, Elliot, that's Tip's DJ, and MLK hit me, and Tip hit me. They're looking for, maybe I should, well, we'll say, hey, they bought the rights to this first album. They own it. So they looking for the first album. We did the first album. So they don't know where the tapes are. I just go to the studio. I'll show you, I have a record of, I'm telling them, look, this is where I sent the reels on this date. 1/20/2009, your masters went here. Here's the shipping number, right? And so now, and here's the dude's number. They like, well, we bought the masters and they acting like it ain't no 2-inch reels. I said, listen here. This is some of y'all don't know. I said, Arista Records and LaFace has a vault, a physical vault, where they keep all of their masters, the 2 inches. When we would finish up a project to get our final payment, we had to physically mail all of those reels to them. They will put them in a physical vault. And so I'm like, y'all paid for the record. Don't let them tell you that they don't have no masters. They got masters back to the 30s sitting in that vault because I know the person that was running the vault.
My
so
God.
I just gave them all that information. I said, here's the date, because they was looking for Dope Boys. So I just go on my computer, type in Dope Boys TI, it pulls up. It shows when it came in the studio, and then we have a record of when it went out, who signed for it, and where it got sent to. So they should be able to get their stuff. So we help people like that all the time where they looking for old stuff, and I can tell them, Jason Jeter picked up this went to this dude, this went over to this studio, and they can kind of chase it down.
That's organization on a whole nother level right there, Curt.
But when you start like that, it's not a problem. It's hard to go back and organize 25 years worth of information. But if you hit day one with the system in place, all I'm doing then is typing in. I'm like, you know what? It might be under Tip, because when he first came out, it was Tip. So do a search for Tip. Then I said, matter of fact, just type in Dope Boys. Don't put a Z on it because it could be a Z or a S. Type in Dope Boy and put in T.I. and don't put the P. Put it in, everything popped up, all his records.
My God.
Right? And we did that for Pimp C's book. It was some type of confusion as to where Pimp C did his work at.
Ooh.
And Julia hit me. And I'm like, we did that here. And then she said, you got any proof? And I went to the album to see when it was released. And then I went to my session reports and looked at the 3 months prior. Boom, Dale Ramsey, track vocals, UGK Pimp C on Big Pimpin'. So I gave them the sheet of paper with the date, with all the notes, and it's in the book.